So I'll click the first one. And this is a sample document here. So the first thing I do when I get a PDF document, the first thing I do is I make sure I have my accessibility tool available, and I'll click on that, and it gives me this panel right here on the right side, which is all my accessibility tools inside Acrobat. So I'll click on full check. Again, what I'm using is the DC version. That's the latest Adobe version for Acrobat. However, this is the same tool used in the previous Adobe Acrobat version. So it's the same tool. It might just look a little different or on how to get here, but it's the same tool. The full check. Usually I leave everything checked for my configurations under documents, page, tables. This one's always checked off by default, that's fine. But everything else seems to be checked. And then I just give it a check, and that's gonna just run through the document and give me a summary. So this is the results on the opposite side, on the left side here. This is all the results from the checker. Anything that's green basically passes. I didn't find anything issues with it. If it has an X, a red X, there's issues with that kind of layouts or those kind of elements on your document. Anything that's a blue with a question mark, that means the checker can't really check that. It's not sufficient enough or where it can make that kind of differentiation of the color contrast, and it's just telling you need to probably give it your own manual check to see if it's accessible. So I notice it has a lot of issues. Tables, it has a lot of issues. Lists, headings, I almost all kinds of issues on here. Whenever I see a document like this that has everything, all kinds of issues, it's probably something that wasn't done right when you converted it from Word or a different format to a PDF. A lot of times when you're working on a Word document or some kind of other format and it's ready to be PDF'd, some people like to do print and print as PDF, which kind of keeps your format pretty decent. However, when you're doing that, it's not really doing anything for accessibility. What happens when you're converting from a Word to a PDF is the conversion kind of brings over all the accessibility we've done, but at the same time, it's bringing the tags. The tags is kind of like the back end of the document. It kind of knows like, hey, this first layout, this first title here is this kind of tag, a heading tag. There's a picture tag. So all that is kind of what screen readers rely on, so I can know I can read this document without issues, or there's certain things I can't read. So when you're converting, there's right methods and different methods. The one you should never use is print to PDF, because it's gonna not tag your document. That meaning there's nothing your screen reader is gonna be able to read. If we convert, I'll go back to this one. If I convert using File and Save as PDF, Adobe PDF, once I save it, once I start saving it, it's going to convert it. Your Word document should have the capability to convert to PDF. should have something already built in. And this is what I get. So I'll go to Tools, Accessibility, Full Check, and I'll start checking it. And notice nothing was basically any kind of issues on this document. Now, this is just a one pager or two, so it's not really a big document that might have a lot of issues. If you're working with a bigger document, you might have some layout, some formatting that's a little more complex. It's, you might have one or two issues when you convert it, and those kind of issues you would have to probably fix inside Adobe. But for the most part, if you're doing everything from Word, all your accessibility enhancements, your fixes, all that should be done in Word. That way, if you have to go back and make some kind of revisions when you reconvert it, all that accessibility stays on there and converts over. If you're just creating a Word document and you're doing all the fixes on the final PDF, that's fine too. However, if you have to go back and make changes, change the color on the Word document or anything like that, when you reconvert it, all those accessibility enhancements are lost. So you have to start over working, making those fixes in PDFs. So if you are working with Word, you want to make all those changes, all those enhancements in Word before converting to PDF. So I'll go back to my other document here. As I said, this one has every kind of issue in there. Now, if I go and look at the tags, this tag kind of shows me all the tags this document has, and right now it's saying there's no tags available. So that means it was probably converted a wrong way, or whatever word processor format I was using doesn't have the right way to convert your document to a PDF. If you ever have this issue where you have no tags, Adobe does provide the auto tag feature. So that's going to be in your accessibility tools, and it's this first option at the top called auto tag document. So I'll click on that. It kind of tells me on the left side what it did, but what I'll do next is just do the full check again. Start checking. And now it fixed a lot of issues, but there are still some issues here. So now there's the figures that need alt text, or headings that they're not nested correctly. So whenever you need to make any accessibility fixes to your PDF, the best tool to use is your reading tool. So on your right side where your accessibility tools are, at the bottom there's something called reading order. I'll click on that, and this brings up the reading order window, and it also starts putting your document content in boxes or regions, and those are in gray boxes on the document. If I click from the report on the issues, it's going to pinpoint me to where the issues are. So, and even the touch-up tool tells you, hey, this doesn't have any alternate text. So what I do is I kind of hover over the picture if it needs alt text, and I do a right click, and on this window there's something called edit alt text. I click on that, it's empty, so I know there's nothing in there, and that's where I can write in my alt text. And then I hit OK, and notice that it changes up here too. This one here, same thing. I can just right click, edit the alt text. For this one, I can just put in laptop, and I'll hit OK. Um, so I fixed those two issues. However, on the left side, I still show them as problems, errors. So I'll just do the full check again. And once it checks it, it knows it passed now, and there's no issues there with images. Over here, you have something called something's not nested, like a heading is not nested correctly. So what happens sometimes is if when it's converting and PDF recognizes something like this, where there's text and there's some phrase above it in bolder, it thinks it's some kind of formatting for a heading. So it kind of puts its own heading tag in there, which causes it to be a nesting issue. Now, if you want to see what it put in there, you can right click and go to tags panel, and it made it a heading 4. And there's a heading 1 up here, but I don't think nothing in between was used, like a heading 2, a heading 3, so that's why it's giving you that nesting error. What you want to do is you can use the same reading order tool, select that text. Now, the way I select it is by hovering my mouse over to this region, and notice that it turns into a hand. When I click on it, the hand closes and it kind of selects the whole region. From there, I can make that into a heading 2. If I do my full check, it still gives me that error, but now it's the second one here. So even though it gives you one error, when you start making changes, it might find others in the document. It kind of works where it kind of goes and finds the first one that's not nested correctly, and it flags that one, and that's where it stops. Once you fix it, it'll run the check again, it'll check the tags, and then it'll come up to the next one that's not in order. So again, I'll select this, make it a heading 2. I'm pretty sure this is also going to be tagged, so I'll select that right now and make that a heading 2 as well. And I can close my tool and run my full check. And now it's fixed. I see a few more issues up here. Like I said, the blue question marks, you're not going to be able to do much with it unless you give it a manual check on the colors. But the checker's not going to do anything for that. However, there is something wrong with your title. So if I click on that and I do a right click, I can get an option that says fix. I'll click on that, and it brings up this window that has a lot of fields in it, and this one is blank, so I'll have to uncheck leave as is and put in my title. So remember in Word when I went into the document properties and added the title? So that's what it's looking for, and it was missed here. So what I can do is select this, copy that, right click on the error, fix it, uncheck it, and then paste my title in there. And I hit OK, and it fixes it. If I want to know it went in there, I can just go to File, Properties, and it's in there. So it's already in there. And now if I do my full check, everything seems to pass now. And that is how you want to fix your PDF document. Start off by doing a full check and assessing each error one at a time. While you're doing stuff like that, if your document's really big, you know, sometimes Adobe is known to crash. So if you do make a fix, you want to save it and then move on to the next error, fix it, save it, fix it, save it. Any questions? All right. So I have one last practice document. Practice exercise 3, which is also a PDF. So this one's 5 pages long. So like I said, once I have my document, I'll go ahead and go to my accessibility tools, run the full check, and do this checking. Now it finds a lot of issues here. And if I check my tags, it is tagged. Those are the tags. That's a paragraph. There's paragraph tags in there. So there it is tagged, but it still has a lot of issues, right? So, you know, the things I want to work on, like I said, you know, you want to tackle maybe one issue at a time. So I'll start with my alt text here, and I click on these. Once I expand it, I'll be able to get to all the error elements on my document, so I can click on them and it kind of highlights the issues. Now I notice figure 1 takes me to this figure, but also it takes me to some other blank boxes on my document. So what might have happened is maybe someone was working with a text box and they removed all the text and they left kind of the outline. Somehow when it converted over, you know, Adobe kind of picked it up. So again, the best tool, like I mentioned, the best tool to fix your documents in PDF is your reading tool. I'll click on that, open it up. So I can see the issues now here. I can see this one and I can see these, right? So the first one is the text is seal. So I can right click on it, edit the alt text, put in text as seal, hit OK. Now for these other ones, there's nothing in there. There's not really an image. So your reading tool has something called a background. You click on that, it really removes that tag out of there and it's not tagged. So that's what you want to do for anything that's decorative or anything like this where it's just a blank box. And I'll hit background and that goes away. Now, if you see these boxes for paragraphs that are blank, it's not as critical as the figures. You know, this will just give it a big long pause for screen readers before they get to the next content. So what you want to do is, if you still want to clean up, that's great. You want to clean these up one at a time. If you select all of these and background them, it's going to start putting all that into like an artifact, which is kind of like a background image that, you know, might get read by screen readers. So you don't want to do that. So the best way is just to make each box into a background, and that goes away. There's one here. There's another one there. Here. 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 And here. So document looks, for the tags, it looks much cleaner now. Now the reading order tool, what you can see with this is it kind of puts a little box at the top left with the kind of tag it's using. So this is a figure tag, that's a heading 2, that's a paragraph, all the way here. This is a heading 2. What you can do is, I know this shouldn't be a heading 2. This is just text. So I can just select it and make it a text. and see how it changes it to a P, which is the paragraph tag, which is what it's supposed to be. This is my main title to the document, so it needs to be a heading 1. Remember, heading 1s are the title to the document, and it should be the only heading 1 on the document. So I'll click on that and make it a heading 1 and see how it changes. Now, this reading tool also provides you a way to change the kind of a tag that it has to the order of the tags. In the reading order window box, you'll see some radio buttons. Right now it's under structure types. If I change that to page content order, it gives me the order the reader is going to read my document. So it's going to read the first line, the title, then it goes down to outcomes, working group, and then meeting agenda, and it keeps going on. I noticed over here that the title or this image here is at the top, but it's read last. If you want to change the order of that, you can do that. You're going to have to go to, if you ever right click on in Acrobat on this bar here on the side, you'll get a lot of options. One of them is the order option. And then this opens up the panel in this format, and you can go down by clicking on it and notice that it's going down the right way, and then the image is way down here, but it's the first object. All I have to do is just click and drag it, and now it's 1, and now it's the order of the document. So the reading order tool, like I said, it's the best tool to use for accessibility, and it also gives you the option to see the reading order of your document. So I fixed all those figures. I'll do a full check. It passes that now. There's other alternate text issues here. Like I said, if you expand and click on the elements or the errors, it takes you right to the issues. So there's 15 issues here, and I notice that it's jumping around, and looks like all these pieces make up one image. If I go to my structure type, they're all figures. I guess they made these pictures by adding different types to it, or different elements, I guess. Now, when you're working with a document, if you have something like this, you really want to make it one image. So what I'll do is I'll click up here, click and drag the region I want to select, and it selects all these. Like I said, when you're going to tag it as something, you can select it all at once, but if you're going to make it a background, you don't want to select all of them at once. So I'm going to make this one figure, so I'll select them all at once, and then on my reading touch-up tool here, I'll just click the figure button, and that makes it one whole image. And I can do the same here, and I'll make it one figure. So notice all the boxes that compose these figures go away, and it's only one box. I'll do the same here and figure. So I made those figures, but now I have to add the alt text, so I'll do right click, edit alt text. This logo here has text on it, so you really want to convey that logo text on there. This is title 1 statewide capacity building initiative. This is our TEA logo. Texas Education Agency. And this one's Region 10. Now hit OK. So if I do a full check now and do the check, all those issues were related to all these little boxes that that made these 3 images. So now it's fixed. So I would save that, move on to my next error, which is headers related to tables. So when I click on that, it should take me to the table in question, which is this one here. Now, it's missing headers, which are important for accessibility. What I do here is I select or click on the main table tag, which is always going to be at the top right, top left. Selects it. On my reading order window, there's something called a table editor. So I'll click on that. And it kind of puts the table in a different shade with red borders. And it's got all these tags that say TD, which means table data. But we're looking for table headers, right? So which should be these up here. So what I can do is I can click on one, or I can hold down the shift key and click while holding the shift key, and it selects the whole row. Once I do that, I right click on any of the cells, and there's something called a table cell properties option. I click on that. This window comes up, and notice that it's a data cell, but we want to make it a header cell. So I'll click on the header cell and hit OK. And now these cells turn into THs, which stand for table header, and they're a shade pink. And that's a way, for, I guess, for visual people to notice. And once I click outside my table, my touch-up reading order tool kicks back in, and I can do a full check now. And now it passes. So if we didn't do these steps, like the headers in Word, you know, it's going to be flagged on the PDF side. So it's always best, like I always mention, work in your Word, your native format document to make those changes. Nesting, something called the nesting issue here. Like I mentioned, there's probably a tag used before a proper heading. And let's see. So it's this one here. So if I go back to my previous page, there's nothing tagged here. Let's see. So that's heading 1. Notice that this page is not tagged at all. There's no gray boxes. And then it comes here and it goes from an H1 to an H heading 3. So that might be a heading 3 if it pertains to this section of this document. So what you want to do is, if it is a subsection of all this content here, you want to tag this, right? And that's why you have this issue here coming up. Tag content failed. So all this is not tagged. So what I can do here is select all this. I'll make all that my heading. So I'll make that my heading 2. It's a subsection of the main document or a main section. And then all this can be tagged at once. It is just plain static text. It's all has to be read anyway. So you can select all this at once and tag it as text. So now it's heading to, and all this is a paragraph tag. Once I run my full check, it fixed it. So it knows all this that was not tagged now is tagged as a paragraph, which is good. However, there's still something wrong here, which is this link here, tag annotation. So most of the time, if there is something wrong, and now I kind of broke it up. You see how now I kind of broke it up into its own paragraph line, each paragraph. However, when you have issues for tagged annotations, that could mean a lot of stuff. It could mean either some content is not tagged correctly or inside embedded. You know, if you're using text boxes, that's what happens most of the time. It's embedded somehow in your document. Sometimes the links are not tagged correctly, which is the case for here. So if the information or whatever it's tagged is critical to the content, we have to tag it correctly. If it's just maybe a decorative line or an image, it doesn't really matter if you tag it or not. You know, it's not important if it gets missed, if it's not critical. But this link is really critical. So the way to fix this is a little more difficult, and you don't really rely on your reading tool. You have to do something different. What I do is you right click on the issue. It gives you this option that says showing content panel. Click on that. It opens it up in this content panel, and it's this issue here. It looks like it's, see how it's kind of embedded? It's got a link over a link. So that's probably the issue why it was flagged. Now to fix this, I right click on the page number. It's page 5. And there's something called find. I'll click on that. It brings up this window here. And I'm looking for my unmarked links or link. So here it is. I'm going to look for the links that are not marked correctly. And then I hit find. And it finds it. Once it finds it, you have to tag it. And you tag it as the correct tag. Like I said, if it's a image, you can tag it as an image. If it's a heading. But this is a link, so I'll tag it as a link. You don't really have to put anything in the title, and just hit OK. And that's the only link it found on this page. So I'll hit OK. And then I close this window now. Now, if I do my full check it, it's fixed. That means it was tagged. Now the screen reader can read it and access the link to go to that destination. So now it's really accessible. And that's, once it's saved, you can post it or do whatever you want with it. But remember, you always want to kind of make all the accessibilities, all the fixes on the native format. So when you do reconvert it over, it's always staying accessible. I think that's the end of the presentation and the demos. Does anybody have any questions?